Okay, so here's a little something that I wanted to share. So what you're looking at right now is a diagram in Draw.io or diagrams.net. So I'm using a local app. And if you're not familiar with it, then it's a diagramming app. So you can create diagrams, figures. You can do flow charts, any sort of visualizations, simple visualizations, usually made of like simple um, elements, shapes, and so on. And you can either connect them up together or add some specific styling and so on. So what I've called this is an assumption map. So it's basically a map of all the things that I think I know, um, and it's to kind of to validate and challenge the way I think about things. Um, the purpose of this is to kind of try to or to have a place where I can quickly navigate between ideas and the way I see things, to put them into perspective and to see the kind of the connection between each other, and also to kind of brainstorm more ideas. So how this works is that I might have I might be thinking something, right? I might start with a statement, and then I ask myself like, how do I know this is true? Why do I think so? Um, if this is true, then what else needs to be true? What are other underlying assumptions? Or if I have this assumption, then what are the questions regarding that assumption or questions that would validate my thinking or disprove it, and so on. And as I work on these, then one idea leads to another, which leads to another, and so on. And so over time, over a couple of days, I managed to build this kind of map of all the things that I think. And in this case, it all started with the idea that there could be an app that helps therapists do their job better, and that they have a lot of repetitive admin tasks, right? And all of this around it came out of that. And so, so there are some assumptions. It's these white blocks. Then there are the questions which validate or invalidate or ask further in depth about the assumptions. And then there are also notes. So when I have like some examples and whatnot, right? And as you see, I've also, in first step, I I generated the ideas or the assumptions, and then I tried to make sense of them, somewhat naturally, and see how I could categorize them. So here you can see that I've ended up with categories like marketing, data and trends, learning and development, law and regulations, process, and so on. Also, these categorizations, these buckets, they can be nested. So in terms of data and trends, there's data capture. In data capture, there's privacy and GDPR, or in-session data and out-session data. In marketing, there's, for example, marketing channels, messaging, value for the client, and so on. Right. So, and this again helps me to understand and think better, and spatially, most of all, about the things that I think, about all things related to psychotherapy. And so, um, the thing is that this is a collection of ideas, right? A collection of thoughts, which can be either a starting point or um, something which could lead to finding an actual problem, right? That I might, as I will do interviews, I might find out that okay, some assumptions are wrong, things work in different way, or I might find out that yes, this is true and a lot of people actually do feel this way, and so I can focus and double down on that. Now, if I want to do that, if I want to validate all these ideas I have, well, I will need to to start asking questions. And because this map already has around 150 elements, so it's like 130 assumptions, so the white blocks, and around 30 question blocks. So there is a lot of things that could be asked. Also, from what I've learned at Benevolent about the practices of user research, I know that it's good, it's better if things can be tracked, if things can be made sense of systematically. So, to cut things short, I made myself a little tool that can convert this sort of map, right? So the diagram with all the assumptions, questions, and notes, and I can convert it into a CSV, which I can then import into Google Spreadsheet, which allows me to keep track of potentially the answers to many of the assumptions and questions in the diagram, right? So here we can see, for example, that we have an assumption number 68. So that's the same thing as if I zoom in on this one. Assumption number 68, therapists trust the data because it correlates with their intuition of what they are seeing in the client. And you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions related to this assumption, and the question block is identified with number 28. And so if you look at back at the data here about the CSV, we can see that these are all the questions that we've seen in the block. Each of them is identified with the assumption, the question block, and the number of the question. And so we have also like the assumption and the question itself right next to it, also with the information on how we categorized this question, with the idea that I could then take this spreadsheet and in the next columns I could track user answers. So it's like just planning out your questions, but having a sort of spatial and very visual source of truth that can be easily modified. Now, if we look at how this was done, then basically I have made myself a little Node.js script, which if we so imagine that this is our starting point, right? So we have only the draw.io file. It's saved as the therapist under _plan.draw.io, and I want to parse this into a CSV from this file and export it out. So I run the script, it reads the file, it finds the assumptions, the questions, and the notes. It sees how things are connected and how things are categorized, and we get this output. Now, imagine that I want to, like one thing is that I can look at it here, right, as a simple table, but maybe I want to do more work on top of that. So I can import it into, let's say, Google Sheets. So let me do that. Um, and you will see that I have all this data, which I've already formatted it nicely in this one, so it's easier to navigate. And so then the kind of the follow up um, on this one would be to feed, like, once I have the answers or some hints of the answers, then the idea would be to feed this information back into the visual representation, meaning that if there are some assumptions which have been disproven, then I could color them red, or if they've been proven right, I could color them green, and that way again I could see which sort of ideas are correct, which are not correct, and still be able to share those learnings with others, because there would be this visual interface where we could all of us see quickly which things are wrong and which are right. So now the question, for you is, would you use something like this? Does it make sense for you? Do you, like, when you think of trying to understand other person or different industry, do you try to understand kind of the people holistically, or are you looking into just very specific part of the process or the experience? And yeah, like, do you do you do you draw it out visually and spatially, like I did in this mind map slash assumption map, or do you have a different way how to generate the ideas? And if you would find something like this useful, how would you use it, right? Because right now I have just a local JSON script, but if you wanted to try it out, or if you thought it is useful, then I can post it online as well, meaning that I can make a website which would do exactly this, that you give it a draw.io file and it gives you the CSV file. So yeah, just let me know what are your thoughts, and yeah, I'd be happy to learn more. Yeah, so that's all for me. Um, and yeah, thanks for listening and watching. See ya.